is John Giles to look back on Ireland's meeting with France on Monday night. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Richie.
It almost seems like one of these weeks where that feels like almost 2-3 weeks ago, looking back on that France game now. It's been one of those weeks, and it's been, I think we've dissected a lot of it. But John, what was your assessment, broadly speaking, of what we saw on Monday night from the Republic of Ireland in that 1-0 defeat to France?
I thought it was very good, Richie. I'd say as good a display as I've seen since Kenny took over. We're playing a very, very good team, as we know. We were under pressure for a long time. But I thought it was a very, very professional performance overall. We went behind to a very, very good goal, as we saw. One of our lads made a mistake leading up to it, of course. But kept their heads. It's the most professional performance I've seen from the team under Stephen so far.
What made it stand out from the others for you?
Well, I thought we were under pressure for long periods of the game, but defended well. I mean, the goal against us was a fantastic goal. It was a great shot. You couldn't do anything about it. But after that, I mean, we're playing a very, very good team, as we know, Richie. Team that finished runners-up in the World Cup. And, I think in previous matches we would have maybe collapsed a bit, maybe lose 2 or 3, 4-0. But that wasn't the case here. We came back into it. We defended when we had to, and then got the goal near the end, which was the goalkeeper. It was unbelievable. The shots he saved. Sorry, we didn't score. We didn't. We almost scored near the end, where the goalkeeper, you can pronounce his name, Mike
Mannion, John.
Mannion.
Yeah.
What a save! I mean, we had two chances. We had a great header from Alan Brown, and then an even better header from Nathan Collins. And how we saved a Nathan Collins shot, I don't know. So, I mean, again, I know it's all ifs and buts, but if we scored at that particular time, then it's a really good result. But I thought the performance was good, and if we keep playing the way we did in a solid manner when we had to defend, we defended. When we had a chance to attack, we attacked against, again, a very, very, very good team.
How much of it was down to the fact that France didn't necessarily look like the same team that we saw on Friday night demolishing Holland?
Well, they weren't allowed to. I didn't see the Holland game, but from what I gather, Holland were terrible in the match. I mean, there was nothing terrible about Ireland in this match. I mean, France were very good early on. We had to defend well and did so, and then came back into the game. I mean, that's all. That's as much as you can do in the game, and then it goes to the last few minutes, and the goalkeepers made two fantastic saves to save Ireland getting the draw. We got the draw from it. It's a great result, but you have to look at the performance, Richie, and the performance overall was very encouraging for the future.
Because it seems like we've been building to this kind of level of performance. I think from here on in, it's going to be a case of, can we sustain that level of performance against quote-unquote lesser opposition? I think the levels of concentration, the Cullen flub and pass aside that led to the goal, were probably on a par with some of the best we've seen from an Ireland side over the past while, just in terms of application and sticking to a game plan from 1 to 11.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, Ireland showed the other night what they can do, and it's a question of repeating it, Richie. You can talk. We all talk, and everybody talks about game plans, but the main game plan is, when you don't have the opposition, you make it difficult when you don't have possession, you make it difficult as you possibly can for the opposition. And then when you get the ball yourself, you try to be as creative as you possibly can. That's what Ireland did the other night when they didn't have the ball, which in the first half was long spells. But they didn't give France anything. Well, they got the goal, which was a terrific goal. But after that, they got stuck in again. They kept at it, and then in the last part of the game, got on top. And the goalkeeper had to make two fantastic saves to stop us getting a draw. This is a really top-class team. So I think when you do something like that from Stephen Kenny's, anybody manager's point of view, that's the standard you've set for yourself. Now, that's the standard that the Irish team have set for themselves. Now, and probably Stephen will probably stick to mostly the same team. And then you now know you have a real team, Richie. You know what you can do. I mean, all Stephen has to do in the next match, in my opinion, is say, look, play the same as you did against France. Play the same effort and have the same confidence. No reason why not. That's why it was encouraging the other night. I mean, we could have collapsed at one stage during that game, especially when after they scored. But that wasn't the case. So what you do is you learn from that. And I think, obviously, Stephen Kenny and the players will learn from that. This is what we're capable of doing. Now, this is what we have to do.
We talk about moral victories. It seems the kind of textbook moral victory in that they really did put it up to an exceptionally talented side. Particularly when you look at that France midfield, they could have run roughshod over Ireland. Kylian Mbappe is one of the best players, if not the best player in the world, and didn't get a sniff. That really is, I guess, the benchmark for Ireland going forward. Who stood out from an Ireland perspective for you on Monday night, John?
Well, I thought Seamus Coleman was excellent. I mean, we know what Mbappe can do. We saw him in the World Cup. He can be a fantastic player. Well, he wasn't so fantastic the other night. I thought Seamus Coleman did a really good job on him. There's no doubt. They had Griezmann playing for them, who's a really outstanding midfield player, Richie. You know, they're one of the best in the world. There's no doubt about that. But the Irish lads handled that. You know, from our perspective, I thought we looked solid. I mean, the goal was an exceptionally good goal against us. It was a great shot. But I thought we looked solid. Midfield was hard working. Our lad up front didn't get. Sorry, I'm trying to think.
Evan Ferguson.
Evan Ferguson, who's we have a goal scorer now. Now he didn't score the other night because he was playing against a really, really solid defence. France were very good at the back. Didn't give much away. Ogbené was good. You know, so overall the team looked for the first time, or the best time for me, Richie, as a team the other night. I thought we defended well. We were good in midfield. We worked hard, and up front again working hard. So it looked like a team to me, and they had to be good, having lost the goal, not to get their heads down, and against a very, very good team, as I say, Griezmann and Mbappe and a lot of other good players in the team. You know, at the end, it was definitely Ireland on top. Could have got the goal, apart from a great save from the goalkeeper. So overall, a good performance. And I think Stephen can go from there. They've proven what they can do against a good team. And you mentioned early on there about, you know, you can't let that standard drop now. Yeah. No matter who you play after that, that standard has to be there. And if that standard's there in every match, you won't be playing against France every week. You know, you'll be playing against what's considered lesser teams, but you have to make the most against them, playing the way we did against France.
I couldn't believe the stat that I think it was Will on the show the other day. I'm sorry if I'm getting one of the lads' names wrong here, that brought this one out. But like Stephen Kenny's first game in charge, nearly 3 years ago now at this stage, was away to Bulgaria. Of the team that started on Monday night, only 2 started back in that game 3 years ago. So it shows you the evolution that he's brought this team on already, and the amount of young players that are there and are able to perform at a level in international football with a very limited number of caps in a lot of their cases.
Yeah.
To be able to perform at that kind of level is testament to the work being done, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that, Richie. I mean, it's 3 years. It does give you a bit of time to do it, but you have to do it. And as young players have come into the team, you know, we've got some of the older players. Jay McLean is still there, and some of the top pros. Coleman is there. You know, really real leader. Seamus Coleman, real leader. So they've got a few good and young lads have come into the midfield. We've got a goal scorer now, who's a terrific lad, young Ferguson. You know, the lad at the back, Collins. We didn't have Nathan Collins, who's should be another top class player. Yeah. So I think things are very, very positive for the Irish team with Stephen Kenny at the moment.
That's great to hear. The positive note to almost end the week on. You touched on Antoine Griezmann there, because just in a more general sense, not even in how he performed against the Republic of Ireland, But to see a player reborn like that in a different position as they get into the kind of autumn years of their career, it's quite something to see them excel to the level at which he has in midfield, both in the World Cup and now obviously since then.
I've never seen anything like it, Richie.
And you've seen a lot of things, John.
As I knew him over the years, was striker.
Yeah.
Striker, and very successful at it. Scored a lot of goals. Now, I've never seen a striker come back and play in midfield in the manner in which he is playing. You know, he's the man that's getting on the ball. He's dictating matters. He's the schemer. I've never seen anybody do that in football, ever. I've never seen a striker come back and do that. It's amazing. Unless, Richie, he was a striker in his younger days. He was a midfield player in his younger days. And he started to play up front and was good at it and stayed at it. That's the only thing I can think of. Now that he's got older, and I think Deschamps has put him back into the middle of the field, he's outstanding. I've never seen anybody as a striker come back into midfield and play the way he can play in the middle of the field. That's why I think he might have started out as a midfield player, but obviously was played up front and was very successful doing it. But now that he's older, he's obviously, and he was in the World Cup as we saw, he's really, really good. I've never seen anybody do it before, come back into that position.
That's it's quite the praise coming from yourself. What do you think he contributes to that? Like, do you think it's a case of, if you've been a player up front for so long and you know the kind of service that you would like as a player, does that, in an ideal sense, contribute to your abilities as a midfielder? Because you know the kind of balls that strikers might want, or you know the kind of balls that your other midfielders might want. So you will have, if you've got anything about you in terms of football intelligence, you will have logged all that and know how those in front of you want to play, and you'll deliver them that kind of service. Yeah,
definitely. But what do you find when playing in midfield, Richie? It's sometimes a lot of times when you play in midfield, it's not necessarily delivering the ball to the striker. Do you know what I mean? There's lots of other things that you have to do to take the ball off the back, get into the position to receive the ball. And what really you have to do as a midfield player is connect the back to the front. And sometimes that's just getting on the ball, get into a nice position, give it out to the winger, or get it back and start again. And then sometimes put a through ball through. Do you know what I mean, Richie? The through ball is one element of the game that you have to do as a midfield player. But there are loads of other situations that you have to do to be the complete midfield player. And that's what he is doing. Obviously he'd have more knowledge of from his time as a striker, how to deliver the ball and where to deliver the ball exactly. But there's lots of other things you have to do in the middle of the field. And from what I see of him, he's doing them all.
Yeah, his work rate, I think that's what's maybe has surprised a lot of people, because you kind of have this notion of strikers as being selfish, because they almost have to be, in a sense.
Yes.
But from a midfielder's point of view, like, you have to service literally everybody within your radius.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he can do that. This is what surprises me in it. You know what I mean? Like, as a striker, he was very, very successful, scored a lot of goals. And, looking back on all the strikers that I played with and against, I can't remember any striker that could come back and play in midfield the way he does. I know I'm repeating myself, say maybe he was always a midfield player.
Sure, yeah.
That was just successful. As no, early on in these early days, one of the men said, right, you're going to play, you're very good up front, we'll keep you up front.
Are there any strikers down through the years that you can think of that might have been able to do a similar job like that? Is there anybody you could have looked at and thought, or even going from a different position, did you ever look at a player and think, yeah, you don't really actually suit where you are at the moment, you would be much better, whether you manage them or not, you think they'd be much better somewhere else?
Yeah, well, that usually happens with defenders. I've seen a few centre forwards in my time become a centre half. Funny enough,
yeah.
But they mostly what they say in football. The further you go forward, the harder it is to play. You know, in other words, and I'm not taking anything away from defenders, but it's actually easier to play as a defender because all the game is in front of you, Richie. And of course, you have to have assets as a defender, good in the air and a good tackler and that. You know, but I've seen over the years, centre forwards becoming centre halves.
Yeah.
Bobby Moore, for example, in the old days when you played, when you had two wing halves, Bobby Moore was a wing half. Good one. He was a good one. But when he went back to playing in the back four, he was different class altogether.
Is that an issue of timing? In that you kind of have more in front of you, there's a little bit more space in which to play than you would because you're being hassled and harried and you're trying to be dispossessed when you're playing up top, and there's a bit more, you can almost be a little bit more cerebral when you're heading back there, and Bobby kind of seems like one of those players who would have benefited from that.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. The further you go back, if you have the assets to do it, if that's the right word, it's easier, Richie, because if you're playing at the back, most of the game is in front of you. Yeah. You know, when you're playing up front, a lot of the game is behind you, and the hardest thing in football is to get turned round. When you're at the back, you're facing you're facing the play all the time. Yeah. So you read it from that particular position. You still have to be good at doing it. But Bobby Moore was a midfield player who had a certain amount of skill. So when he went to the back, it was much easier for him. And usually you find with players, when they move in position, most of them are successful when they're moving backwards. Yeah. In other words, if it's a centre forward, he goes into the middle field. I've seen centre forwards sometimes go back to centre half, Richie.
Kenny Burns, I think, did that with Forest, didn't he? I think he was a striker originally, and then Clough signed him and went, do you know what, you make him a much better centre half. Because
there was quite a few of them. Now, I can't think of them at the moment, but in my time, there was quite a few lads that played the centre forward, finished up playing centre half. Because again, they usually play centre forward, especially in the old days, when they were good headers of the ball. Yeah. And that, Richie. Now, obviously, if he went back to centre half, he's still a good header of the ball, but everything's in front of him.
Did anybody ever try and deploy you elsewhere other than midfield? Did anybody look at you and go, do you know what, John, I think you could do a job of right back?
No. I wouldn't. I didn't have the physique for that, Richie. I wouldn't. Like a fullback, you do have to be a reasonable size or a good header of the ball.
But anywhere else on the pitch, did anybody say?
Well, I played on the right wing with Manchester United.
There you go, yeah.
But only because I couldn't get in the team at midfield. When I went up as a young fella, like there was Bobby Charlton and they bought Albert Quicksall, right? So but there was a space or a position on the right wing, and one day in training I went out on the right wing in the practice match to show Matt that I could do a bit on the right wing, and I did get in the team. And then I was I was never a right winger, really, Richie. I played in the Cup Cup, and luckily enough for Manchester United, it was my last game for them in 1963. I could play in the right wing, but I was never a right winger. Yeah. When I went to Leeds, I was regarded as a right winger because Bobby Collins was playing in that position. But when Bobby got injured in that, but midfield was always my natural position. I only played on the right wing for Manchester United because I'd rather play on the right wing in the first team than play midfield in the second team.
I can imagine, and excuse me if I'm wrong here, the later you went in your career, if anybody had suggested you move out of midfield, the higher your eyebrow would have gone in response.
I would have hated it, Richard.
Yeah.
I was always a midfield player from the time I was a kid. I played on the right wing because it was not convenient for me, but it was the only player that I could get into the first team.
Yeah.
And I'd rather play on the right wing in the first team than sent in midfield in the second team. That's what happened. So for a while I became known as as a right winger. I was never a right winger. I eventually got back into what I consider my natural position at Leeds when the great Bobby Collins got injured, and I took over from him.
I guess in that aspect, it's kind of making the most of your opportunities, and we've seen a little bit of that. That's what Griezmann has done. He's seen others come into the forward line and thought, if I am going to be in this team, maybe I do need to withdraw a little bit more.
Yeah, it could well be. It could well be, Richard. But I didn't stay as a right winger. I was okay. I could play in that, but I was lucky enough. I played in the cup final with Manchester United on the right wing. At that time, as I said, I was coming through the reserves when they bought Albert Quicksall for a record fee. So there was no way I was going to get in there.
Yeah.
And Bobby Charlton, the great Bobby Charlton, was the best player I ever played with. There was no way I was going to get in that position either.
John, I think you did okay ultimately in the end.
Well,
I think it all worked out.
Not too bad anyway, Richie.
John, pleasure as always. Thanks so much for taking time out to speak to us this evening.